It is 7:03 now in my time, so I think we are good to go. Hello, everyone. My name is Namira, and I will be your host today. I am from Ontario, Canada, and I am a proud alum of First Robotics Team 7480, the Machine Mavericks. I'm also an alum of the First Canada Youth Council, as well as the First Robotics Headquarters Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Youth Advisory Council. That's a bit of a mouthful, but right now I am a freshman studying neuroscience and politics at Harvard University, and I'm also an aspiring neurosurgeon and entrepreneur. So I'm always looking for different internship opportunities and cool possibilities that we're going to be discussing today. And I'd like to give you all a warm welcome to tonight's first career webinar, Internships and Careers with Qualcomm. We'll be talking with first alumni interns from Qualcomm, as well as the talent recruiting team, as they share how the skills that they've developed and honed as part of First are applicable to the type of work they do every day. They will be sharing some of what they've learned along their path so far, from resume tips to life at a global corporation to why the work that they do is so important. In just a moment, I will hand it off to our panelists to introduce themselves and share a little bit about their current role, their career education pathway, and first experience. And then I have a few fun questions for the panel that I'd like to start off with. While our folks are introducing themselves, I'd like you, the audience, to start thinking of your own questions. And you can submit those at any time during the live webinar by just clicking on the question mark icon. We'll be compiling these throughout the beginning of the show, and in the meantime, we can go to Jonathan. Jonathan, would you like to get started with your intro?
Thank you so much. Hello, I'm Jonathan Carr, a sophomore at the University of Notre Dame, studying computer science. This past summer, I had an amazing software engineering internship at Qualcomm, and First Robotics has helped me along the way. I have done First Robotics since 4th grade and was on the Killer Bees First Robotics competition team 33 in high school. My junior and senior year of high school, I was the lead scout of the Killer Bees Robotics team, and I compiled data about other teams for playoffs. This helped me learn so much about coding and problem solving, and helped me prepare for my internship at Qualcomm. At Qualcomm, Qualcomm allowed me to grow these skills and learn how to apply real-world applications that will benefit the company. At Qualcomm, I created a dashboard to display audio data results, and I compiled this using Python, HTML, and CSS. And Qualcomm and First has provided me an amazing experience, and I'm excited to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Why don't we try it again, Courtney? Can we hear you?
I sure hope so.
Yes, we're good now.
Yay. Okay. Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Courtney Lock, and I lead Qualcomm's internship program. Each year, my team hires over 150 interns in the Americas region for software, hardware, and engineering positions. I love creating an internship experience for our students, whether it's the free surf lessons that you receive when you're working out of our San Diego office, or participating in our 24-hour mobile hackathon. We love enabling engineers to be creative and enjoy all that Qualcomm has to offer. When I'm not working with interns, I love supporting our partnerships with organizations like First. I'm probably one of the few recruiters out there that knows what it's like to be in the pits at championships, and all the hard work that your team puts into your robots, and fundraising and participating in competitions to get to all the great things that you guys accomplish. You may not have realized it at the time, but when working on your first teams, you're developing skills that are highly valuable to companies like Qualcomm. So I'm excited to be here today and help share more about how you can connect those skills to a future job.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Courtney. And next we'll go to Malav.
Hi, everyone. My name is Malav. I am a senior at University of Texas at Austin. I'm studying electrical and computer engineering. I worked at Qualcomm this last summer. I worked on their modem firmware, so their phone chipsets. So I developed from ground up a scheduler for more optimization and speed ups that's going to be hopefully used in their next generation of 5G chips. So that was super exciting for me. I loved the work and I loved Qualcomm as a company. In high school, I did FIRST for 2 years. My junior year and senior year, we were a small 2-year high school. So I was on team 6171 out of Plano, Texas. We're a pretty new team, so there's a lot of catching up to do on FIRST. So that helped a lot because we were basically still in the early stages of developing a team. So that was super cool and exciting.
Great. Thanks, Malav. I was also on a rookie beginning team, so I totally get where you're coming from there. But I think next we'll go on to Shayna.
Hi, everyone. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. My name's Shayna Mishra. I am currently a senior at UC Santa Cruz, studying computer science, computer game design. I was on team 2658 right out of San Diego. We were in eMotion, and I was the manufacturing lead for the last 2 years of my high school. And this summer I worked as a Qualcomm intern out of the San Diego office, and I worked with experimental technology for marketing and sales resources.
Amazing. I am even more excited about our panel now, just hearing about your introductions. And I think we're good to move on to some of our preliminary questions. Just a reminder to the audience, you can submit questions at any time and we'll get to those in just a bit. But for our first question, I think it'd be really helpful for all of our attendees to understand a bit more about Qualcomm overall. So I'm wondering if Courtney, you could share a little bit more about the work that Qualcomm does and why FIRST in particular is such an important pipeline for interns and employees alike.
Absolutely. So you might be familiar with Qualcomm's name from seeing it at championships, different FIRST communications, or even on the Android phone in your FTC robot. But you might be wondering what we actually do. So Qualcomm is the world's leading wireless technology innovator. Qualcomm is a unique company in the sense that we're made up of people and ideas, and that's really it. Our employees create creative solutions of what the future of mobile technology will look like. And then we turn those ideas into patents and then allow other technology companies to put our ideas into all of their products. We work on technologies like 5G, Wi-Fi, the processors inside of your smartphone that allow them to get you to open your apps really quickly, how your smartphone or tablet or PC connects to your network around you. We work on different wearable devices, smartwatches, XR, VR headsets, cameras, AI, automotive systems in your car, you name it, the list goes on a lot. Anything mobile, Qualcomm has a part in it. And we love to partner with FIRST because there's a lot of synergies between what we do as a company and what you do on your FIRST teams. We need talent that can think creatively, problem solve, work well under pressure, and know how to work cross-collaboratively. When you're on your FIRST team, you're doing just that. Whether it's coding or figuring out how to fundraise, you're constantly working with your larger team to solve real problems. Plus, FIRST has inspired so many to love engineering and all that surrounds it, which is another plus from a recruiting perspective. And the last thing I would say too, when you're thinking about who Qualcomm is and how it relates back to FIRST, if you've ever asked yourself, like, I love the FIRST experience, how do I continue this beyond high school? You can do that at Qualcomm. We have hundreds of employees spanning 8 countries who volunteer as mentors for FIRST. And it's a highly valued trait as an employee to get involved and to support the FIRST community. So if you have that passion, you can continue that here at Qualcomm. So multiple reasons why we love FIRST, but those are just a few.
That's incredible. Thank you so much, Courtney. Now I'm thinking about maybe applying to Qualcomm sometime in the near future, and I'm sure that many of our audience members are thinking the same. So I'd like to actually go to our alumni next, because you're in this position where you were, on a FIRST team not too long ago, and now you're living the dream. So I'd love to go to each of you to ask about some advice that you have for any FIRST alumni who are looking to break into the corporate world. So first I'll go to Jonathan, and then Malav, and finally Shayna. Jonathan, go for it. Get us started.
Thank you so much. What I would suggest to break into the corporate world is to really follow your passion and pursue your interest. And for me, that was computer science. And I know that many of you are passionate about FIRST like I am, and I would recommend for you to continue your passion to learn more about what you're interested in. Personally, for me, what that looked like is between my senior year of high school and freshman year at Notre Dame, I learned Python by taking an online course and getting certification. This helped me not just learn about coding, but also get ahead in classes at Notre Dame and ultimately learn things that are useful at Qualcomm. And that really helped me along the way. So I would recommend pursuing your interest and going the extra mile to learn something new.
I think that is really wonderful advice. Thank you, Jonathan, and great life advice in general for a lot of first alumni who might have had that really great community, might have been pursuing that passion in high school, aren't quite sure how to continue that beyond. I think that's really wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Jonathan. And next we'll go to Malo.
Hey, so my answer to this is kind of similar to Jonathan's. Follow your passion, but take it a step further. Really show if you have the passion for it, do projects, do side projects apart from first. This really stands out to a lot of people, and you have something to talk about when you talk to recruiters. Start with something small. You may not know Python, you may not know Java, C. Just follow an online tutorial for a small project, then build on top of it. Be like, how can I apply this elsewhere? I did a lot of this in high school and coming into college, and I think that really helped me stand out. And more than that, it just teaches you a lot of things. It teaches you how to learn, how to Google things, how to solve problems, and it really builds a broad skill set. And then you can start finding your career interest from that as well.
Do you want to tell us about any projects, Malo, that were a highlight of your career there?
Sure. So the one I talk about the most was a science fair project I did in high school. It was a eye-controlled wheelchair with my partner. Person, he was a mechanical engineer. I was electrical. So we used ECG sensors around your eyes, and based on that, based on a circuitry, we were able to detect eye movements, and then from that, control a full wheelchair for people with paralysis. So whenever you're paralyzed from neck down and you only have eye motor controls, it gives you like increased mobility. Yeah.
That is incredible. I'm sure I'm not the only person right now as a panelist or in the audience right now who's thinking, wow, that is super cool. But I think it's also really important for the audience to know that that could be you too.
Yeah,
so thank you so much, Malo, for sharing that. Really appreciate it. And next we'll go to Shayna.
Yeah, my advice would be like, don't be afraid to put your first experience on your resume. Especially out of high school, you might not have a lot of technical skills, a lot of technical knowledge, or like internships that are like technology relevant. But put your first experience. I actually got my first internship out of high school because of my robotics experience. My recruiter and manager were really interested in what I did on my team and what that whole FIRST is about and what FIRST robotics competition, which is FRC, that's the one I did, what all that was about. And don't be shy, like keep it on your resume. You learn so many skills just like talking to people, interacting with your team, interacting with other teams. And most people are actually genuinely interested to know what you did at your time with robotics.
That's great. Thank you so much, Shayna. And I think that's a really wonderful segue into our next question, actually, which is asking about just that. Essentially, what are some things that you're looking for on a resume? And I'm wondering if maybe we could go to Courtney first for this and then go on to our alumni. So, Courtney, what are things that you might look for on a resume? And how can our audience members today take any advice that you have there and incorporate it into their own application?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, I love Shayna's advice about putting your first experience on your resume. Sometimes in talking with students that comes out, but I don't see it right away. So that's your one homework assignment. I know FIRST is big on homework. So take that away tonight as something to do if it's not currently on your resume. Because for us, we look for that as a distinguishing feature. And we do have a link in the chat. I will do a quick shout out for our Canvas platform. We are collecting resumes from today's event so that we know which students are coming from the first alumni community. So if you haven't already, please visit that link and submit your resume for consideration so that we can take a look at your resume and get you started with our internship opportunities. But what else we look for, know the basics, have your intended degree, graduation date, courses that you're taking. Especially in the beginning when you're taking a lot of gen eds, it's important to expand on the technical courses that you're taking. And even if it's just project experience in that classroom, that can be something that you can talk about and have that be your common ground with the recruiter, that you share more about your experiences. It doesn't have to be, a big elaborate wheelchair project, even though that's so cool. Any experience you have, you put on there. For us as recruiters, we're looking to see, have you taken the basic classes yet, whether that's data structures, operating systems, for our particular roles. And then from there, if you have those basics, we move on to how did you apply them? And that's where, project experience, class projects, things like FIRST really come into play. And yeah, so I mean, it depends on the role, but I would say those are the things that we look for. Make sure you got the basics down, add your first experience, include coursework, and any way that you've applied what you've learned in a real world setting.
Awesome. Thank you, Courtney, and thank you also for dropping that link into chat. Before I go to our alumni, I might cater this question a little bit more specifically to you all and asking, how did you showcase your first experience on your resume? If you're not specifically, did you have any projects that were sort of firsty in nature? I'll go to Jonathan first, then Malav and Shayna.
Thank you so much. So like they said, don't be afraid to put first on your resume, and like some side projects I did was over the winter I taught a Python course over Zoom to my high school and taught them about Python. And another important part of the resume is also networking. Qualcomm is a big part of FIRST and was a sponsor of our team 33, the Killer Bees, and one of their mentors was part of our team, and that's how I became aware of Qualcomm. And through the experience on the team, I learned about Qualcomm and the resume. So the resume and networking really go hand in hand with one another.
Thank you, Jonathan. I like that you mentioned networking there, and I'm wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on that. For any of our audience members who are wondering right now, how do you start networking? What does that process look like?
Thank you. So for networking, on our high school team had about 10 members from a variety of companies, including Qualcomm. And by reaching out to one of the mentors that works at Qualcomm, I was able to learn about what they do, what it's about, and that really sparked an interest for me in audio at Qualcomm. And just really don't be afraid to reach out to people, to ask them, where do you work, what do you do? It can lead to many opportunities.
Great. Thank you very much, Jonathan. Again, really wonderful advice. And I'm wondering if we could go next to Malav to ask about that question. What are some things that you think are really important to put on a resume as someone coming out of FIRST?
Yeah, for sure. So more than just being on the team, I would more focus on what you contributed to that team. So if you're on the software team, say you wrote just more than software, be like, oh, I wrote test algorithms, I wrote code for the drivetrain, I wrote code for these motors, I used these APIs, kind of what you contributed. And I think that's what people are more looking for too as well. And to also, when you're talking about your experience, it's more than these technical skills. You're there's team conflicts you're dealing with. You're dealing with different responsibilities, different mindsets, and that those soft skills are also important in the workplace as well. So that's something to keep in mind as well whenever you're doing interviews and talking to recruiters.
Thanks, Malav. I think that FIRST is just such a spectacular program that it can be hard to communicate the tremendous impact that it has on us as a community and having those skills and how to really bring that to, say, a job interview or an application. So I'm wondering if, Shayna, you could continue there with any sort of advice that you have to those who are watching today. How do you communicate? How do you relate what impact FIRST had on you as an individual and also as someone looking for a career at a place like Qualcomm?
Yeah. So like Mala was saying about soft skills, I always include like technical skills, but also especially with FIRST to like contextualize the program, talking about the soft skills that I learned. So like I was a lead for manufacturing, so it's so much project planning and so much just like time management and team building. So I always include that on my resume, make sure to highlight my technical skills, but also the soft skills, because a lot of interviewers actually really care about those things as well. And I'll always kind of talk briefly about FIRST about like how long, like robot sizes, like I think it's robot sizes, how long we get to build, how long the games are, and what the competition really consists of. Because for people like us who are like really embedded into FIRST, these things kind of just seem like, oh, we all know it. But people who have no experience really don't understand like how many hours we put into like building the robot, testing the robot. And so showing that time commitment and like that much energy and passion that we put into it.
I think that's great advice. Sometimes I wish you could just bring them to the competition so that, I wish everyone could attend a FIRST competition because just an incredible experience. But then I guess you also get to admire all the different parts of FIRST that you might not necessarily hear about, say, just hearing about the program itself. It really builds a tremendous amount of intrinsic and extrinsic skills as well. So moving on to our next question, I'd like to ask you all for a few suggestions on ways to help FIRST alumni stand out from the crowd. And so I'd like to go first to Jonathan, and then Malav, Shayna, and finally to Courtney.
Thank you so much. One of the suggestions to stand out from the crowd is to continue to do FIRST and other extracurricular activities after high school, and this can really prepare you for a company like Qualcomm. For example, since I like computer science, at the University of Notre Dame, I joined the robotic football team where I learned more about Python and was able to not only learn about Python, but also work with the team in college. And that's a really great experience to do. And the whole teamwork in college, how everyone divides it and does a specific task that really is applicable at a company like Qualcomm and has prepared me well for the internship.
Thanks, Jonathan. Robotic football sounds like a really wonderful experience, and I think that kind of connects to how everyone always connects FIRST to different sports, like being a sport for the mind, but how robotics really is a sport in a number of ways. So I think that's really interesting. And before we move to Malav, I would like to give everyone a reminder. I see this in chat, but don't forget that you can submit your own questions for the panel via the question area. We're going to start with audience questions in just a few more minutes. And with that, I will go to Malav. How would you recommend that our audience today thinks about how to stand out as alumni of FIRST?
I think if you're on FIRST and you're contributing to your team, you have the passion for what you're doing, you're already in one step in the right direction. Just continue that passion. Explore new things. Explore how can I take what I learned at FIRST and make my own thing? Can I apply it somewhere else? Just be curious and be passionate. I think out of that, you start to develop such like interest in things, and you start finding what you like to do, what interests you, and then from that building that career from there, and potentially college majors, classes, is super exciting. And I think first is a really good foundation to explore your passions and explore your curiosity. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Malav. And we'll go to Shayna next.
Yeah, like similar to that is that I feel like first really shows like teaches students how to think fast and like always be on your feet. And I think that's a really valuable skill in any career, but that's something that's really great that you can emphasize on and definitely bring it up. Like tie your technical experiences and your first experiences in when you're doing interviews, when you're talking to recruiters, even if it's not on your resume, like bring it up because a lot of people know about it or are interested in it, and it's something really like that shines through. Every time I've talked to a recruiter, they've been so interested in it, and during an interview, they're so like passionate about it, and they'll see your passion, and they'll like get that energy from you, and they'll just be that much more interested in helping you find your career path.
Great. Thank you, Shayna. And I think we'll end it off with Courtney there with that question. I think it's so cool that we have both sides here, both the recruiting side and more of the applying side present at this panel today. But I'd love to hear from you, Courtney. How should first years or first alumni try to stand out? I mean, I feel like we don't really need to try because I think we do stand out for the crowd, but how do we really cater that to the application process?
Yeah, I think one thing to keep in mind is whenever you're going into an interaction with a company, whether it's the application process or at a career fair, or talking one-on-one in an interview, try to focus more on how you learn something versus just what you know. A lot of times at companies, we have technologies that you'll only get exposure to when you start working for us, and so there's no way that you'd be able to learn it in advance. And so what we're looking for is really how do you approach problems? How do you get frustrated when you get stuck? How good are you at Googling? Like that's a real trait to have, especially in engineering and problem solving. And tell us about that process. Even if you failed, like tell us about what you've learned and then how you've applied it moving forward. And then even if you don't have like all the skills that are needed to perform the job, we know that you've been in situations where you didn't know everything before, but here's what you did about it. You pulled together your team, you brainstormed, you came up with an action plan. I think the first experience ties really well into this. And that's really what we're looking for as any employer interaction is we want to know how you think. So keep that in mind when pitching yourself.
Thank you, Courtney. Again, it is so cool to have you on this panel right now because never would I ever think that, Googling something would be such an important skill, but it really is. That shows being inquisitive and being resourceful and something I feel as though we don't actively think about or talk about, but that's so useful to our daily lives. So thank you very much, Courtney, for your insights there. I think now we are ready to move on to some questions from the audience, for which I am very excited. To go into our first question, I do realize that we have a bit of a diverse audience in terms of our ages that are represented here. And so we have our first question that says, does Qualcomm have internship opportunities for either current high school students or recent graduates, or do you have to be in college or university? And so I'll start off with Courtney with this, and then we'll go to Jonathan.
Yeah, absolutely. So unfortunately, we don't have high school internships available, but we do hire students after their first year in college. So if you're a recent high school student, about to start your fall classes at university, September is actually the time when you start to apply for the following summer. Especially with tech companies, our recruitment timeline starts now. We have the majority of our internship positions filled in October and November, and we stop hiring in March. So you want to start thinking now about which companies you want to apply to. For us, we do accept freshmen, after that first year of experience, but you do need the minimum qualifications for the job. So it's a great time to, look at what opportunities are out there, what skills they require, and just put your hat in the ring, apply and see what happens. And I think Jonathan's advice about networking is really huge when you're applying to showcase that skill. So maybe I'll hand it over to him to build on that.
Thank you so much. So So I just started my sophomore year, and right after my freshman year, had my first internship at Qualcomm. It was amazing, and like you said you don't know everything your freshman year. There's a lot to learn, but what I did to stand out was to get 2 Python certifications. So I actually knew more at the time from the certifications than from school. So that really helped me understand Python and be prepared for the internship as a freshman, because I know for many students that can be really hard. And also, it's important to network with people on the first team if they're at Qualcomm or another company, and to let them know, hey, I know how to do this, or this is my experience. And as opposed to a traditional freshman with not many computer science or engineering classes, you're actually able to learn a lot by doing online classes and courses.
Great. Thank you very much, Jonathan. And we just got another question from the audience, which is very exciting. Keep sending in your questions because I think we're all looking forward to hearing them and answering them too. Our next question is that you talked about putting first experience on resumes for internships, but what about when you're applying for a full-time job? Should we still have it there? I'd like to go to Shayna and Malav as they are upcoming graduates, which is very exciting. And I think it's a really interesting time for you both. So I'd love to hear your insights there. Shayna, please get us started.
Yeah, I mean, I still put it on mine. I feel like even if I have like other technical experience to show, it does show those soft skills and just new experiences that you can always tie in to when you're talking to recruiters. So if you have the space on your resume, I definitely think you should put it, just because it shows that you're a multifaceted person and that recruiters really like to hear more about you as a person and not just the list of skills you know.
I would say for me, it kind of depended. I had it up until like sophomore, mid junior year of college, but eventually I had other things that kind of more recent and it kind of bumped it out. So I don't have it on there anymore. But when you get to college, hopefully you have more experiences and more bigger projects that you worked on as well, and that's perfectly fine to put on your resume. First is perfectly fine to put on your resume. Um, but I think it depends. If you're coming out of high school and you're applying to full time and that's the most recent thing you did, then yeah, it makes sense to have it on there. It's just as you get more experiences, the more recent ones will take priority, and then eventually, hopefully, your resume will have these wonderful experiences that in the last next 4 years. Yeah.
Thanks, Malv. And I know that you said that you've been updating it to include more recent experiences. Do you think you could talk a bit about how you might have had some transferable skills that you got from first to get into more of these recent experiences in the workplace?
Yeah, for sure.
Or
So to everyone here who's here interested in an internship, eventually you'll put that internship in your resume. And you got that internship because of first, hopefully, and your experiences at first. So it's always like a stepping stone. Like you did this, now what's the next big target? Oh, I want to, work at a company. I want to do research. Okay, now I did research. Now I want to, do full time. I want to change my career. How can I step into that role?
awesome. Great advice. Thank you. And so we just got another question from the audience, which is asking, how can someone from a small team start networking? I think that this is a really excellent question. I was on a rookie team in high school and we were very close knit and it was a great team, but it was quite small. So we might not have the same connections as some larger teams. But I'd like to hear from you all. Any advice you have for starting that journey to networking? Maybe we can start with Shayna, then go to Jonathan and Malav.
Yeah, my team wasn't particularly small. It was like a mid-sized team, and we were based in San Diego, but we did lack a lot of mentors during my senior year. It just happens sometimes you don't have that many mentors. And so what we did was we actually reached out to local companies in our area, and asked if they had anybody interested in becoming like a volunteer and a mentor. And from then you got to talk to a lot of different people. And some people, like some alumni or not alumni, will like filter through. They won't necessarily want to stay on as a full-time mentor, but then you can connect with them and then take their LinkedIn and their contact info and just like cold email people for information about like if they want to help your team, and then also network through that.
Thank you, Shayna. Jonathan?
Thank you. So personally, I was on a fairly large team, but small teams have a great opportunity for networking, starting with competitions, because at competitions, you're with so many other teams that are small and large. So there's so many mentors there, and not just mentors, but first volunteers. So to be able to connect with all of them during or after the competition, and that can really help with networking, and to continue to talk to them after the competition and to learn more about what they do. So the competition is a great starting point to learn a variety of mentors and where they work.
Great. Thanks, Jonathan. And I think that just speaks to how even after you've graduated from First, you're still a part of First, and you're always a part of First. I think we all have that within ourselves. And next, to end off this question, I'll go to Malav, knowing that you are from a sort of newer, maybe smaller team. What would be your advice there in terms of networking?
Yeah, we actually had like no mentors on our team. Maybe one that was like someone's dad came by every so often. So I had no idea that people were networking through First, to be honest, in high school. So it's good for you to be curious, but I would suggest talk like in networking in general, talk to your parents. They know a lot of people, and these people work at very different companies, and chances are you've talked to them too. So talk to them. That's the easiest way to contact. Like, hey, mom, hey, dad, can you introduce me to this friend of yours that works at Qualcomm? You know, like, and then from there, you can maybe that person has a recruiter to contact, or they know about events that are coming up and they can share that information with you. So leverage your parents. It's the easiest way to do it.
I think that's a great idea. And on top of parents, I think we all have teachers or could be robotics mentors. I know I've connected with some mentors from other teams who are in like different parts of Canada or even different parts of the world. And those connections really last a long time. So I think that's really good advice to go above and beyond, even if you might not have, 30 mentors on your team. Like I know that a lot of people are really fortunate to have. So for our next question, this is a little bit different, and I think it's personal to one of our audience members, but I think it could apply to a lot of people who are in our audience right now or in the future. The question is, how do I bridge the gap between the more mechanical side of things to my current career path of software engineering? I study CS currently, but on my FRC team, First Robotics Competition team, I was more on the business and mechanical or build side of the team. Who would like to start with this question? Shayna, go for it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
because I was actually a manufacturing lead, and I'm doing CS, so that's perfect. Tie in both, because you learn CS skills at school, and I actually really like mechanical, so I like do a lot of mechanical, like just the skills I learned, like woodworking projects on the side. And so talk about the tools you learn. All engineers like are always interested in like things you're creating and things you're making. So don't be afraid to tie both in. And you can say how learning these mechanical skills, like machining is hard. So how learning how to machine helped you with like adversary or helped you with tenacity, things that help you with your technical skills that you learned from like machining.
Awesome, Shayna. You were just the perfect person to answer that question. I'm sure that audience member, many others, were really grateful for your answer. I'm wondering, does anyone want to add to that, or are we good to move on to the next question? Malav, did you want to add to that? I wasn't sure if your hand was up or not.
Oh, I guess kind of my team was really small, so there was a lot of interconnect. Like if you were mechanical, you could go to software and kind of just see what they were doing. And I don't know how other teams are structured. Maybe they're more rigid, but if you're curious, just go sit with the software team whenever they're working and just be like, yo, what's going on? and like you'll be surprised how much people are willing to tell you. So
I think that's very good advice. I definitely did a lot of, hey, I'm not really sure what's happening here, but could I learn what's going on here? And I think that's just such a unique opportunity for us. So great advice. Next question is, would mentoring for your robotics team or another robotics team when in college or university be a good way to gain more experience? Jonathan, would you like to get us started with this one?
Yes, thank you so much. And over the past year, I've actually been helping mentor my robotics team, 33 the Killer Bees, and it's a great learning experience because it's a whole different side. Now that you're not on the team, you're like helping them succeed, and that's so amazing. And what's great about this is to be able to teach others how to do things, and that skill is really important. And it's great when people have questions to always have the opportunity to be able to answer them. And I also have mentoring the Killer Bees robotics team on my resume as part of First, and that's a way to keep First more relevant as you do more things later in college. It's still on your resume because you're still helping out the team. So it's a great tie-in between your experience in high school and something that you continue in college.
But that's okay. In the meantime, does anyone else want to talk about that mentoring experience? Mala or Shayna, are you mentoring a team right now, or do you see the value in it?
I'm not currently mentoring a team, but it does definitely add volunteer experience that you could write on your resume. If you need, like, if you want to just put it on and you have the space, it'll definitely help. It absolutely won't hurt.
Awesome. And I think it's also a really good way to continue that connection to First even after graduating from the program and continuing those networking opportunities. What sort of things do interns do at Qualcomm, and what sort of experience do you get? So maybe Mala, if we can go to you first.
Yeah, I was actually surprised. Qualcomm treats you like a full-time employee as an intern, which is awesome. They don't give you busy work. They don't give you, like small projects. They will give you something that is contributional to Qualcomm as a company. Like they expect you to work like you're a full-time. They expect you to learn like you're a full-time, be curious like you're a full-time. You don't get, maybe you get some special treatment like events and swag, but your colleagues really treat you like you're a full-time. They'll listen to your ideas. They'll ask you for contributions. And I really loved that about Qualcomm and the project I did. I felt like I really contributed to the team. They're really open to my ideas. They're really open to, and always asking me like, hey, what do you think about this? How can we improve this? What are your thoughts? So I think when you're at a bigger company that does a great internship experience like Qualcomm, they will treat you like you're a full-time employee.
That must be such a special experience, and just feel really good to feel as though you're really part of a team there. Next, I think we'll go to Jonathan and then Shayna about your experiences at Qualcomm.
Thank you. Echoing what Malav said, the projects that you do at Qualcomm are very meaningful and help the company. And as part of Qualcomm, you get the experience of how a team works and the whole dynamic of a project from start to finish, and everything that needs to happen, all the planning and all the steps that you do along the ways. So like Malav said, you're actively working the entire time. It's a great experience, an amazing internship, and yeah.
Thanks, Jonathan. I think you really spoke to the different kinds of skills that you bring into Qualcomm from first. I think that we don't often discuss the things that aren't, say, manufacturing or CS, but presentation skills, for instance, or project management, being on a team. Those are all things that I think are so relevant to the experience that you'd have at Qualcomm working with these big, large global corporations. Shayna, would you like to go next?
Yeah. Yeah, one thing about Qualcomm is that they really show you the scope of how big Qualcomm is as a company. Like with my internship, I think I talked to 3 separate sectors regularly based on this project, and they really do have you working real tangible projects. There's no busy work, fluff work. You're working like a full-time employee, and you're interacting with everybody who just treats you as a full-time employee and not like a college student, not as an intern. When you're working, you're working. And it's really nice.
Awesome. And I think we're moving on to our last question of the evening or of the day. And that is, what was or what is your favorite part of having worked at Qualcomm? Wondering if, Courtney, if your mic is working now? I don't think so yet, but maybe for our last couple of minutes we can get Courtney back on. But in the meantime, I will go to Malav. What has been your favorite part of having worked at Qualcomm?
Oh, let's see. My favorite part was kind of how open everyone is to explaining things. So I guess more specifically, when you're in this role, my mentor is explaining that you're not defined to that role. If you're curious, Qualcomm is very open to letting you explore that curiosity, and kind of change your responsibilities and move around and learn new skill sets. And I thought that was super cool because from my friends' experiences at different companies, it's a lot more rigid and bureaucratic that, hey, you're in this role, you're only defined to these responsibilities. But at Qualcomm, I felt like if I was curious about something, I could go ask that person, be like, hey, can you explain that? I'd be like, oh yeah, sure. This is how it works. This is what we're working on, kind of. And I thought that was super cool because it's more teamwork oriented than maybe some other companies might be.
Great. And Shayna, what's been your favorite part?
Yeah, I really liked my projects. I worked on 2 different projects, and I liked being able to interchange between the 2. Like Malo said, everybody's really open to introducing you to new things. And so I really liked that option to be able to switch between 2 projects and work on both at the same time and experience 2 different skill sets during one summer when all the other internships I've had have had 1 project scope for the entire summer. I liked the option to have multiple and to dive in at different things.
Awesome. Thank you, Shayna and Jonathan. And then we'll go to Courtney.
Thank you. One of my favorite experience at Qualcomm was on a project when a challenging task came up for the project, being able to solve it, and it took time, but to be able to see what wanted to be done and understand that maybe it can't be done that specific way, but by thinking of another way for the same thing to be accomplished, to get it done. And I really like challenging tasks. And one thing that Qualcomm internships, one thing about Qualcomm internships is that they challenge you along the way, and you can get things done, and you feel like you accomplished something at the end of your internship.
Great, Jonathan. Thank you very much. And I think we'll end that question with Courtney. What is your favorite part of working at Qualcomm?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think what I like most is when I get to sell students on the Qualcomm experience, I get to tell them that they get to work in the future, because the stuff that we're working on is, 5-10 years away from commercialization. You haven't experienced it yet because we're working on it and it'll be out in a few years. And so there's just something exciting about, solving problems and trying to think about what's next. And when we, think about things like 5G and how they're going to be able to connect a lot more, technologies, whether it's your car or your home, there's just so much potential. And so for me, that's one of the most exciting things, is just getting to see that come to fruition and getting to connect students with the possibility to make that happen.
That is a wonderful answer. Thank you very much, Courtney. And I think with that, we are good to wrap up for our questions today. Thank you so much to our amazing talent panelists for your time today, and to Qualcomm for all of your spectacular support of FIRST programs. We're very grateful to have you. To all attendees, thank you very much for your questions. And this is a reminder to join the event on Canvas via the link in the chat to submit your resume for Qualcomm opportunities. This is your opportunity to be just like Jonathan, Shayna, and Malav here, working at a company as truly spectacular as Qualcomm. Thank you everyone so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.